Hey everybody, I hope you are doing well, and thank you so much for joining me again to watch my whiskey wandering videos. I just want to say that I am really, truly thankful for all of you to be a part of this little whiskey wandering community, and it's such an awesome opportunity to make these videos, gain some whiskey knowledge and perspective, and to be able to share those experiences with you all. And you know what? I hope that you all really enjoy them. Now today I am in a Costco that is located in the northern part of Los Angeles in a city called Topanga, which is a city that has a name that is suspiciously close to a character from that 90s TV show, Boy Meets World. And you know what? If you saw it, you would definitely remember. But either way, it is here in Los Angeles, California, and usually has a pretty decent selection of whiskeys. And the reason, in my estimation, is because it primarily has a demographic, folks who have a little bit extra money, who are willing to buy whiskey that is unique or rare, or at least more limited, rather than just kind of the bulk Costco whiskeys, which are really good for parties and barbecues and things like that, but can start to fall short when you want something a little bit more special, something more smaller batch. So in the video, I do end up seeing some interesting whiskeys out of Northern California, named after one of the biggest trees in the world. A few classic sippers from Scotland and Ireland that sometimes, you know what, they get overlooked as being mundane or too familiar, even when I wander. But they definitely do deserve some attention, so we'll get to those today as well. Now, before we get to it though, if you like these videos of me whiskey shopping, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And that way you can get updates when my newest videos get put up. So thanks again, and let's get down to it. All right, so the first whiskey that I'm going to talk about today from this visit is this Redwood Empire Pipe Dream, which I know, it sounds like a new mafia movie about lumberjacks who run rackets out of timber communities in the Northwest. But in reality, well, you know what, it kind of sort of is like that. So the Redwood Empire Pipe Dream is a whiskey that is named after the 14th tallest tree on the planet, known as Pipe Dream. It's 1,349 years old, which apparently still makes it young enough to run for the U.S. presidency. No, president jokes? All right. But the Redwood Empire Pipe Dream is made up of 4 different whiskeys with distillations from California, Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee, all with varying age statements, and is based out of Northern California, or NorCal, or in Sonoma County, which is known really a lot more for its wines than it is for its whiskeys. So it is kind of a unique version of something you can kind of think of as a California-style whiskey. The price at Costco is a very reasonable $27.99, but you can see that on the street shelf price it has a pretty decent size range, with the high being at $52.99 and low being at $39.99. So this puts the average price at $46.49. So if you do end up buying it at Costco, you'll save around $18 or 39.79%. The alcohol by volume though on it is at 45%, which is sort of right down the middle of the ABV spectrum. It has tasting notes that describe it as having strong peanut, popcorn, raw wood, toasty oak chips, and tasting extremely young. The average review scores give it around 82.5 points and describes it as easy sipping, inoffensive in practically every way, and a bourbon for every sort of person. Sort of damning with faint praise, if you ask me. Now in conclusion, I think this one is going to be a pass for me. I know, for me personally, I look for whiskeys that have personalities, kind of like a lot of different things. They have some character flaws, and ones that can sort of be offensive sometimes. It is these types of characteristics that I think are what define interesting people and good whiskeys, not their inoffensiveness. So in this case, this is going to be a pass because, well, I just don't need the whiskey equivalent of that guy who nobody hates, but nobody remembers, and never had an oblong thought in their head in their entire life. You know who I'm talking about. Maybe you can't remember their name, but you knew who I'm talking about. The second whiskey that really caught my eye on this visit was this Jameson Black Barrel. Now, over the years, I have been acquainted with the standard Irish whiskey, Jameson, and it's like sort of a familiar song that you would never skip on Pandora when it comes on, but you wouldn't leave it on loop when you're cleaning your house. But with this Jameson Black Barrel, the good people at Jameson have come up with a way to freshen up the taste and maybe kind of revitalize it a bit. They have done this by doing a double char, or I guess what you would call a recharred process, on first fill bourbon casks and toasted sherry casks. It is distilled by Middleton, like pretty much all the whiskeys from Ireland, and is comprised of 3/4 12-year-old Irish whiskey and 5-year-old grain whiskey. It also says that it is small batch, but I think by now we have all learned that small batch can literally mean anything. But the bottle definitely caught my eye, sort of like when the wife gets a new outfit. It's familiar, it's nice, but it's something a little different, something off about it. And hopefully, in this case, it's going to be off in the better sense. Now, the price at Costco is pretty good. It's at $31.99, and on the high and low side for the street shelf price at $48.40 on the high side and $34.99 on the low side. So this puts the average street shelf price at $41.90. So that means that if you do buy it at Costco, which I think is pretty much one of the only places I've seen it at, you'd save around $9.91 or 23.64%. So not too bad on the percentage wise, but in the dollars, it's not a huge difference. The ABV on this is actually pretty underwhelming at 40% ABV. So that is one thing that usually kind of would deter me from a whiskey like this. I just like my whiskey to have at least a little bit of heat to it. But the tasting notes on it mention things like heavy vanilla, raisins, caramelized pineapple, that sounds interesting, and butterscotch, would all sound really pretty good. Now, the reviews actually gave it a pretty high score as well, given the price and given the lower ABV and the increasingly mundane aspect of using charred barrels. But the average score that it got was at 87 points out of 100, and many of the reviews mentioned a memorable, long-lasting tale, and that it is overall satisfying and decadent, well, at least for Irish whiskey. So that is a bit of a plot twist that I would have not expected, but definitely piques my interest. So with these positive reviews and the flavor palettes, I think I actually will pick this one up next time. I might even pick up 2 of them because there does seem to be something really interesting about it. Now, there also does seem to be a lot of them around, so I'm not in a huge rush to pick it up. But it could be something good to sip on and enjoy and not have to worry about that sneaky alcohol coming up on you when you're not paying attention. I'm looking at you, Nika from the barrel. You always seem to get me. All right, so the last one today is a bit of an old school sipper. It's the kind of whiskey that maybe your dad or your uncle would have enjoyed if they had ever gone on a cross-country flight in business class in 1997 in Delta, or maybe even Continental. I think that was it back in the day. I think part of the whiskey's longevity is part of the reason why it almost goes unnoticed. It's not the most expensive. It's not the most prestigious in the way some of the other whiskeys and bourbons are, but it's a great whiskey for something that is step up in taste, but not a step up or a punch in the pocketbook. Now, believe it or not, Chivas Regal has a pretty interesting history where it got royal warrants in the 1840s to produce whiskeys for the gentry in England and stuff like that, but I'm not going to get into all the royal pageantry because, frankly, I'm American and I don't care about any of that. But needless to say, it does deserve its due. Now, seeing it here at Costco, the price for the 12-year is at $19.99, which is low enough to even fit the budget of the most struggling college sophomore, especially when compared to the high and low street shelf price of $35.99 on the high side or $27.99 on the low side. So on average, it would be $31.99, which would also mean that if you did end up getting it at Costco, you'd save $12 or 37.51%. The ABV on it is still a bit underweight for modern taste at 40% ABV, so that is one detractor. But the tasting notes on it do mention flavors of heather honey, hay, butterscotch, and overripe citrus, as well as red licorice undertones. The reviews on it too were also sort of a bit low at 82 points. I think that's unfair, but I get it. And interestingly enough, one of the reasons for the lower score was because of something called a cloying vodka-ness, which is distracting. Now, I'm not quite sure what that means, but I'll have to keep that in mind next time I try it. Also, some of the other positives for it are that it is a great classic flavor. It is great as an introductory sipper, maybe if you added some lemon twist and Perrier or soda water to it. Their words, not mine. So you know what? I think that this Chivas Regal definitely deserves a taste. If you happen to come across it, its ubiquity and longevity are a testament to the type of whiskey that it is and has become. I mean, think about how many great whiskeys have been made since the 1840s, and I wonder how many of them have actually been influenced by this Chivas Regal. Even if it was something that maybe you only got exposure to when you went golfing with your dad's friends or at some sort of corporate function from the banquet bar or in the hotel room in the little tiny refrigerator, it's good. But you know what? That being said, I think I will end up passing on it. Not specifically because of its ubiquity. There is no need to buy it if it's basically everywhere all the time and at usually a pretty reasonable price. Also, I'm sort of running out of space in my whiskey closet, so I just need to save the space for some new bottles I got coming up. All right, so that's it for today's Whiskey Wandering at Costco in Topanga. Thank you all again so much for watching to the very, very end. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you get notified when my newest videos get put up. Also, remember, if you see a whiskey that you love, just buy it. Because if you don't, somebody else surely will. And it might even be me. So have a great rest of your day. I'm out, and adios.